This guy deals a tremendous amounts of DPS, and I just love that. Now, what is it that you are going to get from this build? Well, you are going to get something that is going to deal tremendous amounts of DPS. And that's it. Now there's a couple of things that I want to tell you before we actually start building the character, and that is character progression. That is what are you going to get as you level up, because that seems to be a constant concern for people of saying like, hey, but this doesn't seem to be viable for the rest of the game, this is just an endgame thing. You do need to have in mind that logically endgame things are going to get powerful because of the itemization, because of the power spikes that happen in a regular D&D campaign. So that is always something that is always going to happen. What is it that you are going to get as you level up with this character? Just a constant amount of DPS that is going to be a reliable ranger, and that's it. On the end game, you are going to get a guy that is going to be able to solo things, solo situations, that is just going to have quite a whole lot of things. And there's a couple of changes around here and that you can do. Just to have in mind that there's going to take a little while for you to have access to the end game spells, because this guy is going to have access to end game spells, of course. But the thing is that they are endgame spells. Like, what do you want for me to say? It's going to take quite a while for you to get access to them. It doesn't mean that this guy is not going to be reliable as you level up. It is going to be reliable as you level up, but it's just going to take quite a while before it becomes the overpowered monster that we're going to have. That being said, we're going to begin as Ranger, and the Ranger is going to give us all of the proficiencies that we need. We are going to be using medium armor. We're not going to be building Gloomstalker. Before, there's the clever comment that saying that Gloomstalker is better. Well, maybe not, but this is not a Gloomstalker build. We have already that build on the channel. And I'm saying that because there's a whole lot of adamant players that believe that the Gloomstalker is just the ultimate thing. Maybe it is, but this guy is fun, this guy is versatile, and it's just something a little bit extra, something that you are going to be able to have access to. As for the thing right here, if you want to be wearing heavy armor, then be my guest. That is something that you can most certainly be using. But for the purposes of this build, we are going to be using medium armor because our dexterity is going to be quite high. Not as high as we would like to be. That is going to be a downside of the build. But yeah, there's that. So if you want to take Ranger Knights, be my guest. Nothing on right here is going to be important, although Urban Tracker, it's actually quite amazing to get the proficiency in sleight of hands. Now, your ability scores are going to be right here, and you're only going to be able to increase your dexterity ability score a couple of times as you level up, and that is because we're going to be multi-classing, and that is going to remove one ASI ability score improvements from us. So yeah, that is going to be a bummer, but the spells that we're going to be using mainly are going to be based on wisdom for the range and the cleric, like kind of multi-class that we're going to have right here. Constitution, I'd say that it is actually quite important because of the concentration. We want to be concentrated with our character most of the times because we want to sustain some damage that we're going to receive from one of our rings. But yeah, there's that. Now in here, my advice is that you immediately, if you want to be overpowered early game, if you want to be very powerful, well, yes, level 2, you're going to have access to your spells, which I always advise for you to take Speak with Animals, because you're going to be missing out on one important part of the game if you're not speaking with animals. Also, Long Strider, we're going to be moving quite a lot. We're not going to be concentrating Hunter's Mark that much. Fighting style, we're going to be taking Archery to a little bit negate the Sharpshooter that we're going to take later on. So that is something that you need to have in mind. But this now, finally, this is where I advise for you to take at least one level. We're going to be taking just one level into Sorcerer. That level into Sorcerer is going to give us two amazing things. First and foremost, our defense. We don't want to be squishy. We're not going to be squishy. So you're going to take one level into Shield. And Shield, it's basically free armor class. +5 of free armor class, that is always amazing. As for the subclass, you are going to be taking Storm Sorcery, because this guy is going to allow you to exit out of combat situations without having to suffer opportunity attacks. But then again, our armor class is going to be so high that opportunity attacks are really not going to do anything to us. Anyways, it's just a little extra something that you are going to have right here, and we are going to have Storm spells later on But just to have in mind that right now we want this for survivability. We want the shield for survivability more than anything. And now we can start focusing on our ranger. It's going to take quite a while for us to have access to the extra attack, but right here we're going to have access to our subclass, which is going to be Hunter. And Hunter is going to yield you either Horde Breaker, which is my personal favorite because it's just free damage against enemies that are close to each other, so you can be dealing more regular actions and damage. But also Colossus' Slayer, it's actually quite nice because any time that you attack someone that is not full health, you're going to receive a bonus amazing 1d8 damage to that target per turn. So this is going to be happening per turn. That's actually quite amazing. So any of these guys that you want to take, it's actually amazing. Giant Healer is going to be situational, whereas Colossus Slayer and Horde Breaker, that is always going to be that. So I advise for you to take either Colossus Slayer or Horde Breaker. That's that. Now you just are going to keep leveling, you're just going to be getting new features. As soon as you get your first feats, you're going to take the Sharpshooter, which is going to increase your additional damage by 10 by suffering a penalty of plus -5, although that is just going to be a -3 because of our archery fighting style that we have, so there is indeed that. And now as you level up, you are going to receive at level 6 one more class feature, which is going to be your extra attack. At this point you might say that you are already somewhat established, so that is actually quite amazing. At this point you are just going to get stronger and stronger and stronger, and we want to raise as much levels as level 9 into Ranger. But for now, the favorite enemy, again, Ranger Knight, Bounty Hunter, Natural Explorer. I advise Beast Tamer just because this guy just give you like cold, fire, and poison. But if you want to have some resistances against enemies that are giving you issues, be my guest. That is something that you can actually most certainly take. And then at level 7 for our Ranger, we are going to get a defensive tactics. This is actually quite interesting. Escape the Horde. This guy is going to give disadvantage to opportunity attacks that the enemy is going to be dealing with you. Remember that you are a ranger, you want to be moving throughout the battlefield, especially if you're playing solo with this character. So if you're playing solo with this character, you want to be receiving as less damage as possible. But then again, thanks to our mage armor, thanks to our high dexterity and the medium armor that increases our high dexterity, talk about that in the itemization section of the builds, we have more than enough armor class to bypass any kind of attack that we are going to suffer. So might as well take instead the multi-attack defense, which basically gives a penalty on attack rolls on the enemies whenever they deal damage to us. So that is just it's just the same thing but kind of different. I mean, whichever one of these guys that you want to take, it's nice. Although Steel Wheel, it's actually quite amazing because it's going to prevent for you to get frightened, so we want to be bypassing all of those saving throws. So I say that since we have so much armor class, having this right here to improve our saving throws is just going to be that much more important. And in here, just take whichever spell you would like to take. It's really going to be irrelevant. Now, at Ranger level 8, we're going to get our new feats. And this is where we're finally going to increase our dexterity to 18. Granted, it is not as high as we would like to have this thing. We should ideally like to have this thing on 20. And we are suffering quite a little bit of because of that sharpshooter. But trust me, since you have access to arrows, that is something that what makes this character so powerful. You have access to stealing arrows from vendors very early in the game. So there's really shouldn't be that much of a deterrence of having that -1 attack roll and damage roll. At the end of the day, we're going to be compensating with a whole bunch of itemization for the damage rolls that we are going to have right there. Now finally, at level 9, we are going to receive our final spell that we are going to use, and that is going to be Lightning Arrow. Now Lightning Arrow is basically our main source of damage. This is going to be one of our highest damaging things without having to rely on arrows on itself. And granted, it is something that you're not going to have access until you reach the ending of the Act 2 of the game, the beginning of the Act 3 of the game. But like I said, this is just a regular D&D campaign. This is just a spell that you get from a high level character. Alright, so it's just a power spike that you are going to have that is going to break you a little bit more as you level up. At this point, we just want that thing. And the next 2 levels that we are going to have right here, they are going to be coming from the Tempest Cleric. Now the Tempest Cleric is going to give us something very important at level 1 and 2. At level 1, the cantrips, guidance is always an amazing idea to have a guidance, but also we're going to be taking the Tempest Domain, because this is going to yield you one more Thunder Wave, and as a matter of fact, if you want to take these guys early on, it's something that you can do as well. You have the subclass for the Wrath of the Storm, and also you have your prepared spells, and I advise for you to take the Create Water, Destroy Water. Again, you can take these levels a little bit early. Something that we're going to have with the itemization is going to be able to create sources of water in the battlefield that are going to create kind of a CC potential kind of thing without getting damaged by it, but without us getting damaged by it. So that is actually going to be quite amazing. And also this is going to give you Shield of Fate, which is going to allow you to have 2 more armor class, and also have the concentration status without having to rely on whether if you kill someone or not with your Hunter's Mark. Although Hunter's Mark, it's another source of concentration that you can be using without having to multi-class into this guy. Finally, at level 12, you are going to receive your divinity charges to be able to use Destructive Rod, and basically what this does is that it increases the maximum amount of damage that you can deal with your lightning arrow, and you're going to be able to upcast that one to level 4, which is going to be tremendous amounts of damage. We're going to be pairing this guy up with something in the itemization section of the builds, and regardless of anything, regardless of you taking the Cleric first, regardless of you taking the Ranger first, this is not going to get broken until you get to level 12. And then again, I want to stress out that very much. It's just a power spike. It's just regular D&D rules. Your character gets stronger as it levels up, but it doesn't mean that your character is not viable, is not strong enough. As you level up, you can be using this Ranger as a main source of DPS for your crew as you level up throughout the rest of the game. So itemization and the most important things that you are going to want to have. Ideally, on the ranged weapon, you are going to want to have the Gunther Mail as you reach the end game, but also you can be taking the electric bow that you can have access to the first act of the game. Any bow, ideally any bow that is going to increase your damage that much more is going to be ideal. As for the melee weapons, you want to have a shield equipped because you're not going to be doing melee. Might as well take advantage of that +2 or +3 extra armor class that we are going to have if you pair that up with the agility armor that we are going to have right here. This one, for example, this is the Act 3 version of the thing, and this basically, since we have a +4 from our dexterity, this guy is going to give you a 21 armor class, which is basically the same armor class that you would get with the highest heavy armor class in the game. But then again, in the video description, there's going to be a leveling option as well for you right here. But I think that one of the most important aspects right here is going to be the Sparks Wall and the Water Sparkers, because they are going to create a water surface that is going to yield you, that is going to give you the option to have a surface of water that you can have around you. And regularly in party play, if you have this thing set up right here, no one is really going to want to target you. They are going to go instead to the rest of the characters, leaving your archers room to breathe to be able to attack from a distance. And if they do get close to you, you can move around freely there while the enemy receives damage because of your Sparks Wall that you have right here that prevents you taking electric damage. Now, one endgame item that you are going to have is going to be the Amulet of the Debauch. And basically, remember that channel divinity that we have to be able to increase our maximum possible damage that we are going to be dealing with our lightning arrow. Basically, this guy is just a second charge of that, so you can ideally have 2 charges of that per long rest, so that is actually going to be quite amazing. And then we are going to have the Strange Conduit Ring, which is going to yield you 1d4 psychic damage. If you want to replace the Helldust Globes as you level up from the Globes of Dexterity, you would be able to have a little bit more of saving throws into Intelligence, Strength, if you want to respec, and what have you. So yeah, those are mainly the main things that you should be using as you level up. So yeah, there's that. And so the gameplay loop and everything that you should be doing, everything that you're going to have access to, the strange conduit ring, the water sparklers, and the ring that prevents for you to receive lightning damage, those are things that you can get on the first act of the game. So on the first act of the game, you have a ranger that has a electrified surfaces that also has access to being able to deal damage with arrows. And I am going to have in the video description a link and guide on how to get an infinite amount of arrows and why you should be using arrows. And that is why I decided to start building a little bit more of ranger characters, because you should be aware of that using arrows is actually quite powerful, and that is using arrows on itself. As you can see, like it just melts down. You can kill just entire hordes of enemies in just one single turn if you're using your arrows properly. So that is what you're going to be able to get as you level up throughout the entirety of the game. The only thing that you are going to have different at the end game is just that you are going to have access to that amazing lightning arrow that is going to deal tremendous amounts of damage, and you're going to be able to upcast it, and you're going to be able to use the channel divinity with that thing to cast the Tempest storm on that thing and increase the damage that you're going to deal with it. So it's just a power spike that is going to be amazing, but as you level up you should be just fine if you're using your arrows. You should be, as a matter of fact, this guy should be the main means of DPS dealing. This guy can just kill 3, 4, 5 enemies in one single turn thanks to the usage of arrows, and this guy can be clearing things away while you are taking advantage with the tanking with the rest of the characters. And then again, it's likely that no one is going to be targeting your ranger and your crew in your party, because the electrified water around it makes it so that the AI doesn't find it that much amazing to have to go there and deal damage. They prefer to fight characters that are not in surfaces that are not going to harm them. So this guy just has free room to deal damage with the arrows that you have around. If you like the content, like and never super appreciate it. No one's told you today that you are a gorgeous and beautiful, beautiful person. You are indeed a gorgeous and beautiful, beautiful person. Remember to like the video, subscribe to the channel before we close the door, and I'll be seeing you goddamn gorgeous and beautiful people in the next one. Have a beautiful day, goodbye.